Alright, here we go again. Going to discuss politics in the context of the collective consciousness. Okay. It's kind of a criticism or response to a video by, here's the channel name. So basically, well, you should watch that video first. You should watch the whole thing before you continue watching this video. So pause right now and then come back later after you've watched the whole thing. Okay, so now that you've watched the entire thing, let's recap on the question that was asked. The question basically was that globalism is stifling the evolution of our consciousness, and so therefore, how do we fight back? And as far as I can tell, the summary of the answer is that globalism is not stifling our consciousness. Globalism is helping in the evolution of our consciousness, and that was his kind of take on the whole thing. That was his answer in a nutshell. So the reason that I'm making trying to engage in a discussion with this particular person, YouTuber, is because I really respect this person's level of knowledge and effort taken, because very few people have that level of understanding about things. And this is someone that I'm capable of discussing this subject with, because of their level of understanding. They recognize the most likely, most possible influence of the collective consciousness, and recognizes that the elites are regular people, just like you and me, who are influenced by the collective consciousness. I do want to add, though, I just want to point out, because it's a very crucial point, is that it's a combination of I don't want to get into like free will or anything, but the collective consciousness logically is would be founded upon individual people making conscious decisions, and our psychology is based upon a vast amount of variables. Part of it is our own conscious decisions, and part of it is personality, etc., upbringing. Part of it is the influence of the collective consciousness. So I just wanted to add that in, because it's very important to the topic. So everyone agrees, especially us two. Everyone agrees that unity is the goal, and in the context of the collective consciousness, if you're talking about politics in the context of the collective consciousness, everyone agrees that unity, harmony, unification, or cohesion, or whatever, coherence, amongst all human beings is the goal, because that is a raising of consciousness, because of what I think the mechanism of consciousness is. They are one and the same. To have unity is to have a raise in consciousness, okay? And that is the goal. And I think that most people, even if they don't know anything about the collective consciousness, would agree that is a good goal to have, and that's a necessary requirement if you're imagining something like a utopia. Unity is the goal. Everyone agrees. Unity is you walk up to anyone on the street. Is unity a good thing? Yeah. Everyone will say yeah. If people get along together and sing Kumbaya, is that a good thing? Yes. Everyone wants that. Okay? We're all on the same page on that. But the strategy, that's where people kind of, it's not a question about what the goal should be. It's a question about what the strategy should be. And so these elites, these normal human beings that have more power than the rest of us, they also agree upon this goal of unity. It's a fact. They want unity. But they have a particular strategy, and there are multiple strategies. Okay, there are multiple strategies towards that goal. There are probably strategies that no one's thought of, but globalism is one of the strategies towards that goal. It's not the goal, it is one of the strategies towards the goal. A lot of people who have been brainwashed since birth to worship the state can't make that distinction, and that used to be me as well. Okay, so the answer generally was that we're going in the right direction, and a one world government would be a good thing. And the reason stated, the evidence stated that we're going in the right direction is that we don't have slavery anymore, and women can vote. So I'm not saying that no slavery and women being able to vote is going in the wrong direction. I'm not saying that at all. The way he views it, though, the way he's putting it forward, though, is as if the reason we don't have slavery, we don't have legal slavery in the West anymore, is because of an evolution of consciousness. And also the reason that women are allowed to vote is because of evolution of. So basically, one day, like, we all just woke up one day and collectively just decided, oh man, slavery's bad. We had this evolution of consciousness. That way of looking at it is completely incorrect. If we're evolving so much, just think about this. Just think about this for a second. This is a discussion, okay? We're just thinking about it. We all got the same goal. If we're evolving so much, why do we need a government? Okay? Why does a government have to outlaw slavery? Don't people just know it's bad? If we're evolving so much in our consciousness, then there wouldn't need to be a law. No one would have to write down on a piece of paper, you're not allowed to have slaves to make other people property. And there doesn't need to be people with guns walking around enforcing what's wrote on a piece of paper. That's completely unnecessary if we're so evolved in consciousness. The state has to force people with the threat of violence. And that's enforced. That's a law that's enforced by the state. The reality, because we're, despite, I don't like reality, okay? I don't. That doesn't mean we have to, live in La La Land. We should acknowledge what reality actually is, so that we can arrive at a strategy that works. Slavery exists. It's not one day slavery doesn't exist. Slavery is a continual part of this world, this terrible, terrible world that we live in. And it exists in various forms, and arguably in greater quantity, but also that has to do with, like, greater population or whatnot, or not, I don't know. But there's also more slavery in one would say that there's more slavery, and I'm not really sure about that, but people say there's more slavery in, like, the non-Western countries or undeveloped countries. There's more slavery. And so that's kind of like why we need one world government to enforce, use that force, the threat of violence in those countries. But then if you see it that way, then very clearly there's a difference in the level of consciousness between countries. If those countries over there, they still have slavery, that means they have lower consciousness, right? That would be your argument. And therefore the way to fix it is to use the threat of violence of a state, one world state. Or someone would use the argument that, well, if we kind of diffuse, or we kind of combine our people together, then our people with a higher consciousness it'll do kind of like osmosis, and it'll raise their consciousness, but also it'll like lower ours, and it'll kind of like neutralize. I'm just taking that logic to the extremes, So I don't like that people view it that way. Oh, there's no slavery. That means we're evolving in our consciousness. Because there are steps. If you use that mindset, there are certain steps that you go through, and we've gone through all the steps. And now where we're at right now, the step we're at right now, I'm not talking about the future, I'm talking right now, the step we're at is that bad people are not allowed to say what they think, because they're bad people. And that's enforced by the state with the threat of violence. So that, therefore, if you use that logic, oh, the state's is our savior, and it's saving us and raising our consciousness because it's using the threat of violence to end slavery. Well, we've gone through those steps, and if you have that same frame of mind, then everything the state does is good and is a sign of our consciousness evolving. Censorship of bad people, therefore, is viewed by a large number of people as a good thing and a sign of our consciousness evolving. Bad people, whoever the state deems a bad person. Most likely it's going to be someone who's not so fond of the state. It's not, so basically what I'm saying is that is not a sign of an evolution of consciousness. It's not. Show me a single instance. Show me a single instance in anywhere in recorded history where a centralized group of people with power, or government, or whatever, raises the consciousness, unifies people, show me a single instance where that's happened. No one can show me a single instance of where that's happened. You know why? Because when you have a centralized group of people dictating things, that centralized group of people is not going to be aligned with the collective consciousness. They're not. Maybe they will for like 12 minutes one day, but then they're not going to anymore. They're going to diverge from the collective conscious, the collective will. And it doesn't matter how perfect that small group of people who run everything are. Doesn't matter how perfect they are. The small centralized group of people are not going to be aligned with the collective consciousness. And there's not a single period in time where a government has created unity and harmony. I must again bring up Nazi Germany. That was one of the explicitly stated goals of that highly centralized authoritarian government, was to generate spiritual unity or greater collective strength. And it's called national mysticism. So these elites who are regular people, they have the same goal: unity. And then they have this strategy. The strategy is to use disunity. Use disunity in hopes that one day everything will unify. That is the actual strategy. That is what globalism is. Okay. Let me put this in other terms. Let's say you're in a club. You start a club, or you're part of a club for sailboats. You're in a sailboat club. And you can only join the club if you sail boats. Okay, so you're in a club, and so you're with this group of people, and the only people that are there and that are allowed in the club are people that sail boats. And if you don't sail a boat, you're not allowed in the club, because it's a club for sailing boats, okay? What globalism is it looks at something like that and says, that's bad because you're not letting people in your club. You're not letting people in your club. You should let people in your club. You're being you're closing yourself off to other people, because it's a club that's only for people who can sail boats. So that's bad. So the strategy there by the globalist is to get rid of the club altogether. Just dissolve the club. Dissolve all clubs, actually. Get rid of all the clubs. No clubs are allowed. That's what globalism is. It's, you have these groups of people that are unified in some way, but because these individual groups of people are not letting everyone in, then they're bad and they need to be disunified. Globalism is disunity. That is the actual strategy. Even though they have the goal, the eventual goal of unity, that is the strategy to cause disunity in hopes of in the distant future, magically sometime it'll happen, where everyone will magically, once we get rid of all of the clubs, once we make everyone the exact same, get rid of all cultures, get rid of all differences in DNA, just have everyone kind of like, you get rid of all, have a single religion, have a single language, dissolve all these clubs, just dissolve, everywhere you go, just dissolve. Okay, that's the strategy. Tell me when that's worked. Show me where that's worked. Show me a single instance in which that has worked. In the cities, people, it doesn't matter how much disunity, how much, this is a good thing though. It doesn't matter how much disunity a centralized force causes on the populace, because people will unify. People will always find something. People always join clubs, find something to unify themselves, and they'll group together in their own little groups. And that's just what happens. I'm just telling you what reality is. People group together in groups. And the actual strategy of globalism is unsuccessful. I'm not saying like, oh, it's bad, or I'm literally, that is my argument, is that globalism is unsuccessful. Show me a single instance where it's been successful, because I can't find a single instance where it's been successful. Unity is the goal. Everyone knows that. But you need to have a good strategy. People have got, the elites need to have a better strategy that actually works. Yes, people have good intentions. The elites have good intentions. Obviously, they're human beings. They have good intentions. They want unity for the world. However, it is impossible for a human being to not have good intentions. And when I ask someone, what do you have to offer? If you ask yourself, what do you have to offer? And the only thing you can come up with is good intentions, not only are you worthless, you are not neutral, not worthless at zero, you're below zero, you're in the negative, you are an actual liability to society. If that's all you can come up with. You know why? Because good intentions are completely worthless. Completely worthless. Absolutely worthless. It is impossible for a person to not have good intentions. Why did you rob that? Why'd you steal the candy? Why'd you steal the candy? Oh, because I was trying to impress my friends. Why'd you steal the candy? Oh, because I had an urge for candy. It's literally impossible for a human being to do something that and not have good intentions. So if your only thing is good intentions, not only are you neutral at zero, not only are you not just adding nothing, you're actually a liability. You're using up resources. You're a liability. And you should rethink your life. And you need to make the distinction between the goal, and you need to realize that there are multiple strategies towards the same goal. And if you don't, you just think, oh, well, I have the good intention, and people who don't have my strategy, they don't have good intentions. You're a liability. It's not working. Globalism is just not working. That's it. That's what so. A lot of things the guy said is really good, really good. We need to. There's a hurdle. There is a hurdle called survival. Okay, there are like the laws of physics, just how our the fabric of reality is, that we need to survive, and therefore it's difficult to behave ethically, and that is a hurdle. That is the hurdle we need to overcome. Even though you might overcome that hurdle. You might decide to love everyone unconditionally. There are people who are in survival mode, and they will take advantage of that. The strategy, the good strategy, needs to involve overcoming that hurdle at the individual level. An individual needs to decide for themselves to overcome that hurdle. That is not something you can dictate with a law, with a government. It is literally impossible. And that would be a sign of a raising of consciousness, if every single individual consciously, on their own, decided to overcome that hurdle. And if only like a few people do it, it's not going to work, obviously, because everyone else is going to take advantage of them. The survival world is going to snuff it out and lower their consciousness again, kill them. The world will kill people like that. You must be vulnerable, ultimately vulnerable. But that's just, it's not possible. It's not possible. Everyone has to do it all at once. And it can't be done with the government. And, let's say there is a one world government. Does that mean we won? Does the world become a utopia? Do bad things stop happening? It's not a sign of victory to have a one world government. It's not, no one has the answer to the question, how do we fight back? How do we raise consciousness? I think that people need to lead by example. I think that people need to be against the government. And I do agree with this person asking the question. I do agree that globalists are stifling the evolution of consciousness. I do believe that. Even though it's because of good intentions. Even though it's because of good intentions. And a lot of these elite people are very highly educated. It's just that they're human beings, okay? They're human beings, and there is that influence of the collective mind. But from the point of view of the person asking the question, the part of the collective that's influencing the elites is the evil part of the collective. Okay, it's not the good part. But of course, in every person, there's good and evil. On every side, there are good people and bad people. There are smart people, there are dumb people, everywhere. And I cannot identify an enemy. I cannot identify an enemy. At every step, the more you learn about like world events, politics, whatever, and the more you learn, you go through these stages, and at every stage, there's people telling, oh, this is the enemy, this is the enemy. People are telling you who your enemy is. Oh, you should hate these people, you should hate these people. At every step, and it changes. At every step, people are telling you who the enemy is. Then you get to a point where you cannot identify who the enemy is. And the enemy is ultimately, yes, I mean, in a particular event, like if someone's trying to kill you, that's the enemy, okay? All right. um, but in the grand scheme of things, the true enemy is death, decoherence, disunity, confusion. That's the enemy. And so the way to fight back on the grand scheme of things is to think of ways to fight death. And people are correct, uh, like this guy, this alchemist guy, that um, vulnerability and unconditional love and truth uh, is a way to fight evil in yourself. It's a way to fight evil in yourself on a personal level. And then from that, if everyone does that, then that would, um, and I think kind of like what people really want to know is, okay, well, after I've got everything in like after I've become a perfect like ascetic, after I've got my own spirituality figured out and I don't sin at all, then how do I cause other people to do the same? How do I influence things politically? That's kind of what people want to know. And people want to know. People are trained to expect the government to do everything for them, to make them a perfect person, to raise their consciousness. That's not going to happen. The government is not going to raise your consciousness, okay? So I, just like a lot of other people, are constantly trying to think of the best strategy. And I cannot answer that question. How can you influence other people other than lead by example? And don't be like a vegan that like virtue signals all the time. Like that don't virtue signal. Like that's not. Just be a better person. Okay, just um, come to terms with your own consciousness. Like be go be. Don't lie. Just everything's so easy if you just tell the truth all the time. Everything's just so easy. Like you don't have to you don't have to keep track of all these lies. You don't have to worry like, oh, will they find out that I'm lying? No, you just tell the truth. Like everyone's human. And it's I just I it's hard for me to even like say these things like, oh, lead by example, because I'm very far from perfect. So I'm kind of being a hypocrite right now, saying these things. I'm a total hypocrite. I just like logically I can see the path, the correct path, logically. Getting there is the difficult part. One big thing about religions is this concept. This is one thing I'm obsessively researching right now. Is sacrifice leading to atonement. And this has been a big thing forever in all these different religions, where like you'd sacrifice a goat or whatever, and because of that, you're like your sins like leave you or something, like you've been atoned for. And I've been obsessively researching that, because there's got to be some kind of metaphysical monist basis for that. Of course, I mean, I think it's complete bullshit. I'm there's got to be some reasoning for it, and no one has any, no one anywhere has any kind of explanation for the metaphysical basis of that. I'm not like trying to look for like a reason to sacrifice a freaking goat or anything. I don't. It's completely illogical to think that like oh I'm okay now. Like, even though I did something bad, it's okay now that I killed something. It's doesn't. So I'll make videos about that in the future. That's something I'm obsessively researching right now, because that actually might have something to do with the answer. And then, of course, Christians, they've got it all figured out, because their figure Jesus Christ was sacrificed to atone for everyone from that point on. So it's just they can't they can't explain how that atonement thing works, and they don't make any attempt at all, and nor does anyone else ever. So that probably has something to do with it. Like, I wish it was as simple as, smearing like olive oil on your face or something, like some weird ritual like that. Like, just smother olive oil over everyone's face, all at the same time, and then utopia. I wish it was something like that, like something technical, some technical issue, some logistical hurdle, or something like, there's people that talk about, the animal, there's like animals out there that influence our collective consciousness, and the animals are bringing us down, and like people near the coast, like near the ocean, they sin more than people more inland, because of all the evil in the ocean that's bringing their collective consciousness down. So maybe I'm just brainstorming right now. Just one strategy is to move everyone away from the ocean. So all the fishes and stuff stop bringing us down. Those dang fishes. There are, I'm not joking, there are serious arguments for that. Like, they're like made like the devil has been, or like gods have been like fish gods or whatever, like the fish demons or something. I don't know. I have no idea. It's a weird topic I don't really know anything about, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to think about it. That's why I make this video. Very critical. I care. Like, I recognize that this alchemist person cares. I care too. And it's just intelligent people discussing something in a friendly way, to bouncing ideas off each other. And you do kind of have to take like this kind of responsibility, because not everyone is thinking about this stuff. Not everyone's educated enough. Not everyone's at that level where they understand these things. So, it's a certain level of responsibility for particular personality types, who are, I think, and this is kind of like a theory of mine. It's kind of like incarnations of particular chunks of the collective that are focused on unity. And so, one thing I'm working on to answer this question, one thing that I'm trying to do to influence other people is to so I've been educated in personalities, and there is a very significant metaphysical basis to that, like the Jungian types, the 16 personality types. And I'm working on a way to try to unify people of the same personality types together in clubs, essentially in clubs. As a way to basically target the spiritual characteristics of people that match up. It's like a kind of like a mathematical view. Like grouping all the green M&Ms together and all the orange M&Ms together. Because to group people, to create clubs based upon the spiritual characteristics of people, as a way to potentially create a greater coherence in smaller chunks of people. See, I'm not against. I'm against globalism. I'm not for breaking up clubs. I think the opposite strategy is better, to create clubs, but better clubs, better than like a nation or like a national identity. Something better, like more spiritually aligned nations. And to create in smaller clubs, starting at basically the individual, and then smaller, like actual local clubs, starting at the bottom and working up, creating really cohesive, spiritually cohesive clubs, and then adding to it and making them bigger, and then hopefully joining them together. Not just like breaking things down and then hoping that they just unify in the end, but starting at the bottom and working your way up. You don't bulldoze a house and then think that because you bulldoze the house, there's going to be a bigger, nicer house in its place. You have to build, if you want a nice house, you have to build your nice house from scratch. And everyone wants that nice house. And I think that we should try to build it up from the individual level foundation. Lead from example, understand yourself and your spirituality, and connect with people that easily connect with you. Easily connect with basically the same personality as you. It is good, to go outside your own personality and make relationships with people that are opposites, because like opposites attract and whatnot. But you shouldn't spend 20 years of your life with someone just to find out that they're not really you don't really jive. Most people do that. Most people take 20 years out of their life. So there's a certain time period, to spend. How much time should I spend getting to know someone before I'm going to be in a relationship with them? There should be a really efficient way to group people together, to get to basically have people become friends and get into relationships and whatever. there's a lot of people out there who think that there's a spiritual basis in one's ethnicity or whatever. I'm not really an expert in that. I haven't really given that much thought. I just know that there are just an infinite number of variables, and I haven't recognized like, oh, ethnicity as like, oh yeah, that's the key spiritual variable right there. It's well, anyway, I require anyone listening to this video, think about it, and you should write comments, and you should make videos of your own. You should say what's on your mind. What do you think? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of doing this, is to have everyone talk to each other, to give bouncy ideas off of each other. So that's homework, okay? It's freaking homework.